Hey everybody, welcome back to Mac Kiteboarding Foil Fridays. I'm Tucker, and today I'm going to walk you through the Code Foils lineup. So this is a new brand for us in the shop. Arguably, we probably don't need another foil brand. We have a ton of amazing foil brands, but after riding the Code Foils, we had to add them to our lineup because they are just that special. So today I'll walk you through some of it. It's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward and clean, so it shouldn't take long, and I'll give you a little bit of a kind of a review from my point of view along the way here. All right, so most popular series in their lineup is going to be the S series front wings. These S series, I guess you could say it stands for surf, but also I guess you could say it stands for speed, because while these are a pretty surfy foil, they are also really quick with amazing glide, huge speed range, but as I said before, very surfy and maneuverable all at the same time. So they tick a lot of boxes, a lot of different disciplines with the S series wings. So for 99% of the people out there, this is going to be your go-to wing in one of the sizes. I personally have been riding the 850 and the 980 quite a bit. The 980 is, for 980, very lifty, very surfy, even for me at 200 pounds. I can prone it in small waves. I can foil drive it in flat water, no problem at all. Light wind winging, no problem. And the 850 is the go-to shredder for me on any of those days where the conditions are good and really, a bit more windy or a bit more wavy. Starting around maybe 16, 17 knots of wind, or, waves maybe chest high and over. You could ride it maybe down to waist high, but I think the 980 is a bit more in its zone there for me at 200 pounds. Thing to know about the S series, they do have more lift than you would expect for their size, so I would suggest sizing down just slightly if you want to maximize your performance. If you just want a cruiser, just ride a similar wing to what you normally would. You're going to get some extra lift on the low end and more forgiveness with your stalling. And these things are very, very easy to pump as well. So if you're somebody that just wants something fun and cruisy and surfy that you can pump everywhere, stick with a similar size to what you would normally ride in a similar foil. Going on in their range to the R series, this stands for race, or I would say really, really, really fast. Or really, really, really glidey. These things are very high aspect, as you can tell here, about 12 aspect ratio. So a lot of span on these. Even the 770 here, you can see, is wider than the 850S by about 4.5, 5 inches. So really, really stepping up the glide game in these. So because of that, you are going to really look to these for downwinding, downwind racing, any kind of downwind gliding you want to do, or pumping in the larger sizes. These things are really efficient pumpers. The glide and pump ability is just maximum efficiency. With regard to winging, kiting, those kinds of things, they're a little bit spanny, so you'll want to size down if you want to keep good maneuverability. This 770 here is about as big as I would go winging, and it is really fast, but in breaking waves, the wingspan can get a little bothersome from time to time. So it's best used in conditions where you just want to glide and cruise, or where you have the ability to go really fast and not have to worry about breaching the wingtip in the swell or in hard carves. But really fun to ride this one, and really surprisingly low stall speed and great low end lift for such a small wing, such a thin wing. I mean, this thing is sleek, man. It's a knife, and still has great low speed lift for a wing of this size. So really fun to play with that one a bit and kind of find out where it fits in the quiver. But for day-to-day riding, for a one foil quiver, for something that's just a bit more recreational and fun and kind of good at over a broad range of conditions, the S series is what most people are going to want to be looking at, unless you're hardcore into downwind paddling, and then maybe the R series here. So similar story with the stabs. They have two series of stabs. They have the AR. This is your standard stab that most people are going to be riding with the S series. It can also be ridden with the R series if you want a little bit more stability. a little bit more stall protection. Just a really good surfy stab. It's got just a little bit of an anhedral V to it, as you can tell there. So that really just gives you some flow in and out of turns, gives you a real active turning where it kind of wants to bounce in and out of turns and create something to push off of and create some acceleration out of turns. So this is a really fun surfy stab. I've been riding the 158 and the 150 most often. And the 950, the 150 is a little better. On the 980, I can kind of mix and match. If it's lighter wind, I go with the 158. If it looks pretty good and more surfy, I go with the 150 for a little looser appeal. Then in the R series, naturally, you're going to go with a higher aspect stab here. It also has a slight V anhedral that just really locks that wing in, gives it some directional stability so it's not so twitchy and unstable or slidey. It really gives you a little bit more traction, but not so much that this wing isn't still fun and surfy and really efficient. It is. Obviously, with this high aspect, very thin stab here, it's really, really glidey and has a massive speed range. Pairs really well with the R series, or if you want to take your S series up a notch in terms of your glide and you don't mind sacrificing some of that surfability and some of that traction in the turn, you can go ahead with an R series as well. So that really kind of unlocks the high end range or a little extra glide out of that if that's what you're looking for with the S series. That's that. With all of these parts, one thing you'll notice throughout the entire code range is that everything is very clean. The design is very sleek and clean. There's not any weirdness about it or anything on these that are just flashy for the sake of being flashy or cool looking. It's just functionality, efficiency, maximized, and stiffness. One thing that's unique about the entire code range, I would say, is that it's incredibly stiff. That goes from the stabs to the wings. You know, this is a huge wingspan. Look at the tiny cord on this thing and how thin it is, but it's still rock solid. The mast is one of the stiffer carbon masts in the market, and that's even without going to like an ultra high modulus or anything like that. Really stiff mast. The connection here is quite large. You can see the mast cavity, the mast plug here where it connects to the mast is larger, and it really locks that in. So there's no tolerance, there's no wiggle between the fitment and then how the fuselage is molded into the front wing. That is just rock solid and stiff. You'll notice we have a fuselage extension here, kind of like what you'd get from some other brands, F1, Cabrina. This one is similar, and that is a very stiff, again, larger connection than most, where it's really going to lock in there and make the stiffest possible connection for the just transfer of energy and rigidity and just efficiency of everything. Just makes it a joy to ride. It really levels up the ease of use and how intuitive they are in performance when you're riding them, especially as a heavier rider like myself. The more you weigh, the stiffer your equipment needs to be. Otherwise, it's just going to feel nervous and unresponsive and just kind of twitchy and hard to ride. Code really levels that up. If you're a heavier rider looking for high-end performance, this is a foil you should definitely consider. Coming from somebody that has been an F1 lover for a long time, I would say these foils share a lot of the attributes of the F1 line, only it is a little bit stiffer. It is a little bit heavier, so that's something to note as well. The weight doesn't bother me in any way. It's so minimal that I don't even really notice it when I'm riding, but it is something to notice. There are, some weight weenies out there. If you're a lighter rider, the weight might bother you more, but this stuff, I would put it in anybody's hands and feel confident as long as we had the right setup for you. Lastly, we have fuselage extension like we talked about. They have a small, medium, large, and they will be releasing an R series fuselage here in the near future as well. The small is best used for shorter boards, kite foiling, shortboard prone foiling. If you want a really loose and twitchy feel in the turn, very skatey feel, Medium is what I'm using most. That's kind of the go-to fuselage for these, especially for winging, proning in average conditions, and you know, even for a downwinding for a lot of people, if you're not riding a really long board, the medium is going to be the go-to fuse. It provides you with really good stability, stall protection, glide, but still very maneuverable and surfy and fun. The large is really going to be for people with longer boards or people wanting to maximize that glide efficiency. So primarily on the R series and downwinding, especially if you're on smaller foils, big, fast conditions, longer stretched out boards, those longer fuselages are really going to give you a bit more glide and stability in the pitch so that everything's just smooth and easy to go. You don't really, you know, mind sacrificing a little bit of maneuverability and opening up the arc radius of the turn. But most people, again, the go-to is the medium, unless you're really on one side or the other of average, or you're just a really light rider. You might even want, you know, the small size just to kind of adapt for your weight distribution and smaller boards you're riding. But anyway, I digress. This is the Code Foil lineup. All comes with really nice covers, hardware with all the pieces. It is all 100% carbon. Very much of it is in high modulus carbon, which is why they're so stiff and solid and awesome. So if y'all have any questions about this gear, put it in the comments section below. Really excited to get some of you guys on this and hear your feedback. So if you have any questions, want a recommendation or a quote, give us a ring. Until next time, we'll see you around.